Hello and welcome back to Unleash the Goats, where we unleash ourselves upon the Star Wars franchise with reckless abandon and nobody quite knows what we'll say next, least of all us. I'm Nat, she, her. Angela, say hi.
Hi, I'm Angela /Faye, she, her.
Sugar, say hi.
Hi, Sugar, she, her.
Happy Star Wars Day, first of all.
Happy Star Wars Day.
Happy Star Wars Day.
More importantly, Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to those who celebrate.
Those things don't happen on the same day, but they do happen the same month.
That's true.
Well, we don't know when you're listening to this. You could be listening to it on Mother's Day or Star Wars Day.
And those are the only two options.
The only two options. This episode will only be available on those two dates.
Would not help our viewership.
No, probably not. They'd be like, oh, did they come out with an episode this month? I guess not. To celebrate, we're going to talk about mothers today. In Star Wars, not just like in general, although if you guys would like to share some anecdotes about mothers in your life, you're welcome to do that.
We'll listen. We're not great at the therapy stuff, but we'll listen.
For the sake of being specific, do we want to define mothers as like people who have given birth to children?
Oh, no, I included adoptive mothers. I included
Beautiful.
Beru, who is technically not biologically, by marriage, she's an aunt, but she is
great.
raising a child. So it definitely was not just people who identify as women who gave birth.
Beautiful.
That is obviously a predominant number of these characters, just by virtue of how often that does tend to end up being the case. But no, we have both Beru and Brea, and Marva Andor as well. So there are definitely several characters in here who are not, as well as Faye's crack section, which includes a couple of alternatives. So
Beautiful.
We're going beyond the pale here. We'll get to the Faye crack section, don't worry. I left that one in for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But I figured we'd start with maybe like a really brief kind of general analysis. I put the word analysis, but just kind of a feel of like, how do you kind of feel mothers are treated in Star Wars? Like, do you feel like they're given the same weight as fathers? How often do you feel like mothers kind of get included in the storylines or get their own storylines? Killed off for the pain of husbands and children? So on and so forth. How complex are mothers allowed to be? Maybe in comparison to fathers or in comparison to their children? Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Well, for starting with the number one, no, because we have an entire trilogy dedicated just to how important the father bond is to his son.
Specifically father-son, yeah.
Yeah, father-son bond, very specifically. Not father-daughter bond.
No.
Father-son bond. It's the whole point of the trilogy, and it's beautiful. There is nothing like that for mother bonds.
Just sons or daughters.
The most I think you might get is maybe Mon Mothma and her daughter. Although that is less important to the overall narrative, so much as it is important to Mon Mothma.
I will say the one other place you might find it, you're not going to love this example, but the one other place it kind of exists is Leia and Kylo Ren.
I hate that example.
I know you do. I knew you would.
I do hate that. Yeah, I do hate that. She does die for his fuck ass.
She does die for his fuck ass, but like there are elements in the earlier two films where like the Leia and Kylo bond is arguably more important than like his relationship to Han sometimes.
I mean, the Shmi and Anakin bond is very important and like
Also
has a big part to play in the first two movies, but she's not really mentioned in the third one beyond like once or twice. And overall, she's not present in the story the same way that like Vader and Luke are, where you're like seeing their story play out.
She's
more
haunts
of, like,
the narrative very heavily, but yes, she's not physically present for a lot of it.
yes, she's there metaphysically,
Yeah.
but she's not there like to influence the story by her own choices. She's just there to influence Anakin's choices.
Yeah. We'll get into specific characters, but I think in general, the Star Wars is about fathers and not mothers. Like, if you were to pick one. I feel like they die very frequently.
Very often.
And, like, to be fair, so do the dads.
The fathers also die.
The fathers also die.
I was going to say, I
So
did
there's
kind of
that.
go through this, and when I had slightly more characters on here, that was a little bit more obvious, but like, I was kind of going through like, who died? Like, which of these mothers died? Did they die at the same time as a husband? Did they die after a husband? right?
Yeah.
Like there are a couple of those where like yes they die in the narrative, but technically the husband did actually die first, or they die at the
True.
same time, a la the Organas kind of thing, right? They get blown
Or
up
the
pretty
Larses.
simultaneously. The Larses, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Leia technically dies after Han, even though she does actually die at the end of that. So
Kanan dies before Hera. Yeah. Marva's husband also dies before her.
Hera's not dead at all, so that's also hopeful.
Well, she'll die eventually.
I mean, I was like, she hasn't actually died yet. But yeah, so like of all the mothers who were killed, there actually weren't too many where it was like the mother is the only one that died, you know, or the died before a father. And to be fair, in Shmi's case, there isn't a father available to die.
There's no father. Yeah.
Mhm.
Unless you
can't
want to
die.
count Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon as a sort of pseudo father figure, and both of them do die. Qui-Gon dies before Shmi does, but it is after he
Mhm.
leaves Shmi behind.
Arguably, Obi-Wan is more of a father figure than Qui-Gon is.
Yes, I think you could make
In
a
that he
solid
is-
argument, but I think Qui-Gon is sitting there as a little bit of a pseudo father figure within the context of Phantom Menace.
Oh, for sure. But like in terms of like the impact on Anakin's life
Absolutely, yeah.
physically, like who's actually there present having an impact, it is technically Obi-Wan. I mean, you can say that Qui-Gon is there metaphysically because he's the one who trained Obi-Wan, so his influence is what is causing the influence. But it's still Obi-Wan who's passing on the influence.
And we've gotten
And,
into
you know.
fathers, so let's move back into the
Yeah,
mothers.
immediately we're like, oh, we could talk about Obi-Wan? Let's do that.
That is our real problem. Is every time there's an opportunity to talk about Obi-Wan, we're like, oh, Obi-Wan.
We just did Qui-Gon. We have to move on from Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Let's focus on Shmi. Faye, I want you to take this one, at least to begin it, because I know how much you love her.
I love Shmi so much. So Shmi, if you're unfamiliar with Shmi for some reason, you should fix that.
You might not
first
have
of
watched
all.
Star Wars at all.
You might have watched Star Wars. Shmi,
I think probably some people skip Phantom Menace. They're wrong to,
that's
but I think
true.
it's possible.
I've seen people recommend skipping Phantom Menace because they're crazy.
She's in Attack of the Clones.
Briefly. So Shmi is a slave who is brought to Tatooine. Sources vary on whether or not it's before she's pregnant with Anakin or after she's pregnant with Anakin. But either way, when she has Anakin, they are both bought by a Hutt who then loses them gambling to Watto. And she seems to have a relatively okay life with Watto. She kind of like has her own like
As slavery
apartment.
goes.
As
Yeah.
far as slavery goes, like she has her own like apartment house situation. Like Anakin works in the shop and she's always worried about him, but she is not doing like hard labor in the sun every day. So she's not having the worst possible life, which is not saying much because she is a slave.
Because she does not get to choose what life she has, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she does get to choose to get married and leave slavery after Anakin leaves the planet and has a seemingly fairly happy life with Clegg Lars. It is unclear if she is in love with Clegg or if she just went with him because it was an opportunity to get out of slavery. We don't ever actually see her and Clegg interact. We only have his perception of their relationship when he says that they were very happy and no one seems
He
to claim
seems
otherwise.
to be in love with her.
He seems to be very much in love with her.
I would argue his
Yeah.
feelings seem pretty clear. And I think in the Kenobi show, like, there's a lot of stuff about, like, Owen hating Obi-Wan because of what happened to Anakin. And given that Obi-Wan met Anakin for all of about an hour, like, and it
You
wasn't a particularly positive interaction between Owen and Anakin, you have to assume that the reason he's kind of fussed about Obi-Wan having hurt Anakin or failed Anakin is actually maybe more about Shmi and about Owen's,
yes.
you know, relationship to Shmi and knowing how much Shmi had loved Anakin. And so Obi-Wan having failed Anakin is kind of coming more from maybe that
having
end.
failed Shmi.
Yeah.
Which also kind of plays into this part where, like, Shmi clearly has had an impact on the people, right? Clegg is... She is not Clegg's first wife. He already has a son, so Owen is her stepson. And they have a grave for her. And when she dies and Anakin kills that entire village of Tuscans, I always wonder how they perceived that, because they're meant to be like very much of this like Western frontier vibe of like, you know, sailors out here on the brink of nowhere. And traditionally, historically, those types of situations with those types of relations with natives were usually when something like that happened where an entire native village was wiped out, it was not met with mourning by settlers. if we want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So I always wonder, like, how they perceive that.
I think Klieg makes it clear he does not care for them. Like, I think Klieg
Yes.
might actually call them animals or says something similar to that when they're having that initial debrief about what happened.
Yeah.
I can't.
So, but it's not
remember.
clear if they all feel that way. It's what, but Clegg, like, says he would still be out there looking for if he hadn't lost his leg, like,
Yeah, I feel
etc.
like there's something he says that implies that he sees them as less than human.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've seen that scene, but something's triggering me that there was something that Klieg says, at least, that indicates that his feelings are very much like that. Owen and Beru, it's less clear. That I don't think we ever really get an indication of what Owen and Beru feel about the Tuskens. I think you could assume that Beru is would likely be the more sympathetic of the two, if we had to make a gamble on that one, but we don't ever really see them interacting with them much.
My point here is that, like, their perception of what Anakin does in revenge of Shmi is not a negative one, most likely. So what we are seeing of this being a horrible tragedy because he kills everybody, no matter what their fault was and what happened, they are not going to see it that way. And so they're going to continue to have a positive perception of Anakin, colored by Shmi's perception, but also because they do not view this as a tragedy, even if they actually find out what happened, which is possible, but, you know, they don't know where the village is, so who knows what they know. Like, that's a positive in their thing, because Shmi died and she got revenge. And he brought Shmi's body back, more importantly.
Yeah.
Unless there's consequences to their farm as a result of Anakin having fucked with the Tuskens. Like, I mean, they're not the only Tusken tribe out there. You know, he didn't manage to commit an entire genocide, so it's not impossible that there was perhaps some sort of consequence as a result of that happening, and that it landed on the Lars farm after Anakin fucked himself off. But that's pure speculation on my end.
Completely pure speculation. We don't know anything of whether that happens or not. It is a very likely situation. That was a very common...
Yeah, there was definitely tension there. I think in the Kenobi show they mentioned that they are worried about potential Tusken attacks. That they're kind of prepared for the possibility that the Tuskens might be something that they have to be prepared for. Or at least they use it as an excuse to keep Luke inside or something like that. So there is kind of this element of, like, it is still a part of their lives that the Tuskens are a problem. Anyway, Shmi is an interesting mother, and she seems to have a positive relationship with both children she ended up in charge of, as far as we can tell.
An interesting thing about Shmi to me is that she looks really similar to Padme, and Anakin does not look like his mother. And they cast them intentionally. You know, they picked the people to cast. And Shmi has very dark hair, very dark eyes, and Anakin is blue-eyed, blonde hair. But Padme is cast as a brown-eyed, brown-haired girl, which is a fascinating thing to me, that, like, you can kind of, like, see where this projection comes on to their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Especially how they look.
100%. I think Anakin's projecting Shmi onto literally everybody in his life.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that makes me have complicated feelings about Shmi, because, like all of this speculation about what happens post Tusken Raiders being completely, like, murdered, we know so little about Shmi as soon as Anakin leaves, and I feel like she very quickly turns, like, she's no longer a character as soon as Anakin is with the Jedi. She now becomes a plot device so that he can have anxieties in the second movie, so he can go back and murder a bunch of people and, like, start making decisions that send him towards evil. And that makes me sad, because I feel like Shmi's, like, I feel pretty confident in saying that if Shmi had not died and been, like, saved and lived from the Tuskens, then she would be like, dude, what the fuck? You can't just kill people. But we don't get to see that, because Anakin has turned her into, like, an ideal and not a real person. And that makes me sad.
Yeah. I mean, which is interesting, though, as a thing for him to do, you know, to kind of, like, have this conception of Shmi that is perhaps does not match the reality of who and what she was, that he then kind of applies to all these other people he projects Shmi onto, and the desires that he has within his relationships are all based on this kind of fantasy version of his mother, or at least the person that she chose to be with him, right? That Shmi had a life and a personality outside of Anakin, but that maybe when she was with Anakin, she was kind of trying to bubble him a little bit as much as she could.
Yeah.
And so I think Anakin has a very childlike, kind of rosy-hued understanding of his mother that is maybe not super accurate. Which I think leads us nicely into Padme as one of the most obvious projections, as we've kind of mentioned.
There's so many parallels between them. Like, they both have, like, the children of the Force. They both die tragically young. They do their hair in the same way in their dying scenes. Like, it's so sad. No, that's not true. She has a braid. I'm so sorry.
She is, yes, her hair is braided when she actually dies. Because she's still in the Mustafar outfit kind of look.
But still, it's a low hairstyle outfit, so I'm counting it similar. Yeah.
The thing that I think is interesting about Padme is that she's a character that she doesn't start as a mother. So unlike Shmi, who is introduced to us as a mother and kind of becomes the mother figure of the story, right? She haunts the narrative in many ways as a mother. Padme didn't start as a mom. Like, you could have guessed, obviously, knowing that, like, Luke and Leia have to exist. You could have kind of understood that that's where this was going. But she's introduced to us as a young girl who is queen of Naboo, and, there is a solid argument to be made that she gets reduced to mother. Which is not, like, saying that motherhood is less than, but that there are quite a few female characters who can get turned into mothers, and then they kind of lose their personhood in stories.
Yeah, like that's their entire character now. It's caught up in this one aspect of them.
I mean, you'll see people complaining about the third movie where Padme is barefoot and pregnant, and that's her personality in the third movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not totally accurate, but that's not wrong either. Like, that is a lot of her role in the movie, is to be the barefoot pregnant wife who's, like, crying at home
and dies
and dies
and then dies.
Yeah. And they do have other things going on for her, but then they cut all of those things.
Yeah, so they are not technically canon to the Lucasfilms. They are recanonized as of Alexander Freed's Mask of Fear book, because they do talk about those scenes a little bit. But it wasn't canon as per the films that Padme was doing that shit.
Yeah, because supposedly she's in the deleted scenes, she's the one who's, like, pushing for this coalition of people, which then leads to the rebellion. So in some ways, she's also the mother of the rebellion at the same time as she is mother of the twins. And it's just kind of like they're trying to do something here where they're trying to, like, have her be the mother of the rebellion the way that Anakin is, like, spawning the Empire by his choices.
Mm-hmm.
But then they cut all of her stuff. So...
Which, like, in some ways, like, yes, it's sad for Padme, but I think there's a good reason for that, right? Like, the story isn't about Padme, it's actually about Anakin.
Right.
And so they were like, okay, this thing is 5 hours long, we gotta cut some stuff.
Gotta cut something.
And Padme ended up on that particular cutting board because it was more important to have her there as just Anakin's catalyst into darkness than it was to have her as the mother of the rebellion, because you can kind of get the rebellion coming out anyway without that being there. I've made the argument that, like, yes, she devolves, and I think there is a writing choice that got made there and an editing choice that got made there, but I also kind of, in some ways, really love that she devolves into motherhood, that she is reduced to motherhood, because I think that it creates this interesting parallel between Anakin and Padme, where Anakin is losing himself to his selfish tendencies, and he is reduced to his own anger and fear and darkness, and then Padme is kind of reduced as a result of her own selfish choices that, like, you know, we see her doing it in some of these scenes with Anakin more than once, where she'll try to push something and be like, hey, have you considered that maybe our government is kind of corrupt? And he's like, how dare you? You sound like a separatist. And then she, like, pulls back so hard. She backpedals immediately and goes, like, hold me like you did on Naboo. And, like, just kind of lets them disappear into the fantasy bubble of their romance and their relationship, because she's unwilling to actually push her point of view anymore. And I think that there is an interesting kind of story to be found there, if you want to find it, of Padme's own selfishness kind of causing her own devolution in the same way that Anakin's is causing his devolution, right? That they kind of reach that doom together. But at the same time, it is that her scenes got cut. Obviously, like, she was supposed to be doing other stuff and her scenes got cut. But I think that just taking it as it is and kind of looking at her themes with what we do have, I think that there is an interesting thing to be had there.
Yeah, I think especially if you play with the whole her giving Anakin an ultimatum, but it's too late. There are people who I've seen talk about Padme as if she could have saved him if she'd like done something earlier, kind of thing. If she'd laid down an ultimatum earlier, and maybe that's true. Maybe if she had drawn a hard line earlier, Anakin would have like been forced to make changes in himself. But like I always say, as long as Palpatine's in the picture, it ain't fucking happening.
Mm-hmm.
And she would not be Padme if she was willing to hold boundaries. Like,
exactly,
Padme is kind of notable for not holding boundaries.
But her daughter is. Leia is great at boundaries. She holds that boundary till she decides she's ready to move it, and then she'll move it, but not before. And I really like that about Leia.
I do like that about Leia. I think that the thing, since we're on the kids, and Padme is a mother, we've talked mostly about her romance and not her relationship as to the kids as a mother. That's the thing that doesn't happen with Padme, right? That, like, her relationship to her kids is basically non-existent. Like, she talks about them.
They don't even know her name.
They don't, yeah, at least not within canon. But there's comics, I think, where they do get a little bit more introduction to Padme as a concept. But like, yeah, within the films, like, nobody cares, right? Like, Luke has this one bit where he goes like, Leia, do you remember your mother? And she has that, like, you know, kind but beautiful and sad but beautiful or something. This kind of a random line that she tosses out that doesn't even make a lot of sense anymore with the context of the prequels. You know, it's just interesting that almost never exists. And, like, the place that actually seems to exist the most in terms of creating that connection is actually the Kenobi show, where you constantly are hearing Obi-Wan kind of comparing Leia to Padme. And seeing the similarities between them. And I think a part of that is just that, like, Obi-Wan is always going to be seeing Anakin and Padme in these kids, even though, like, a lot of these traits that we're seeing are actually much more similar to Bail and are actually explicitly told to us are things that she got from Bail. But, you know, but still, like, there is a connection being built between Leia and Padme, and I did appreciate that. But that puts us into Leia. We kind of very obliquely mentioned this. I am keeping this to canon. We will get to Legends Leia. But just to keep this from bouncing too hard, Leia obviously does become a mother within Disney canon.
Apparently a terrible one.
Well, a terrible mother or a terrible son?
Good point.
Yeah. Is it her fault?
It's unclear. We don't really get to know because we never see them interact.
Do they ever interact?
No, they don't.
Not in the same room. There's, like, hints that they kind of sense each other in the Force every so often.
They are never in the same room. They're never on screen together.
And to be fair, she directly impacts him when she sacrifices herself to do the Force whammy to get him back into the light.
Yeah.
I get. They're still not in the same room.
They're still not in the same room.
They're not even talking.
No, but she is. There is a relationship between the characters in a way that, like, doesn't exist for her and Padme.
I will give them some grace because they were going to do more with their relationship in the third movie, and then tragically Carrie Fisher passed away, which was very sad and obviously impacted how they were able to film any scenes with Leia and Kylo Ren. And they had to get Han Solo back for the...
I was going to say, I think that whole bit at the end where, like, it's Han talking to him was supposed to be Leia, I'm fairly certain, and, like, they just no longer had Carrie Fisher, so they kind of asked Harrison Ford to come back and do it instead. But
and he was like, I mean, I guess. How much money?
If you give me an absurd amount of money, I will do that.
I think he was, like, willing to do it for Carrie, kind of thing, like, in her honor a little bit, but...
That's very sweet.
So it's an odd little thing, but... And I will say that I also do feel like Leia was kind of reduced to motherhood here as well. That, like, Leia is not really given a narrative of her own, and even, as you say, if she'd been given more focus in the third one, I think the focus would have been on her motherhood and her relationship to her son, as opposed to Leia kind of having more of an arc of her own.
Yeah, because you get a little bit of her in the first one, where she's, like, the general now, and her and Han are having, like, a back and forth, but again, a lot of it is about Kylo. And then in the second one, she's in a coma for half the movie. And when she is awake, she's, like, having tense moments between Kylo Ren. And I will say this about their relationship. He is not willing to kill her, and he was willing to kill his dad. So,
yeah.
there's that.
Yeah, it's hard because I feel like the only scene I remember surrounding her motherhood is like her having a conversation with Han saying like, you need to go after our son, and like, I'm super worried about him, the way that a mom would be worried about their child. And then like Han dies because
she's
not
trying
about it's not about her relationship with Kylo. We got to bring the fathers back into it. And I'm like, you could have done it different.
I think what I liked about that is that I think Leia is pulling on what she remembers of Vader and Luke, and she's like, oh yeah, the father-son thing, that's gonna hit. Like, I need you to go save him because, like, I know that's worked before. And then they very intentionally tell you, not this time, bitches. Like, they have Han go in and it doesn't work this time. And so then you have to go like, okay, well, can he be saved at all? And if he can, it obviously isn't going to be through the same method that we used last time.
Yeah.
And I did kind of appreciate that, like, twist, that they chose to do. I don't think that anything came of that later, but I kind of thought it was interesting in the moment that they were like, we're going to do the father thing, and then it blatantly, intentionally does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I'll say about Leia in this movie is she has one kid. She's like, let's not try that again. That didn't work. So let's just keep it with the one.
Yeah.
And I love that for her. I love that she had the cognitive ability to be like, no, I'm good with just the one kid.
Yeah.
So we don't need to risk this again.
Right. I'm going to move us on from Leia. So the next one up, we're moving into our adoptive mothers section with Beru, who is technically an aunt through marriage, but is also in many ways an adoptive mother for Luke.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the relationship to the child she raised kind of barely exists. She's alive for all of 10 minutes total, maybe, like in that
Seems
movie
generous,
before she's killed off, and then Luke never mentions her again.
Never, quite literally, never.
Never.
Does he mention his dad?
You mean Uncle Owen?
Yes, I mean Uncle Owen. Like,
no.
He's just like, my adopted parents are dead. Peace out, bitches. Joining the rebellion. He does have a lot to worry about.
Well, he's very sad about it.
He is sad about it in the
moment. And never. He's repressing it into like a diamond. But he's like, never again will we ever speak of this. The most we get is when he's like talking to Biggs. Ish.
I don't even remember that.
He's like, I left home, whatever. I'm here.
Oh, which is like not even.
I mean, that's like literally the most.
The closest you get, yeah.
Yeah. They do seem to have a positive relationship.
They appear to have had a really positive relationship. You get a little bit more of this in Kenobi.
That was very cute in Kenobi. I loved them in Kenobi. They were great.
Yeah, again, there is, I think, more focus on the father here via Owen, but technically you do get Beru and some of Beru's relationship to Luke in this as well.
What I think is interesting about Beru is this, I don't remember if it's canon in the movies or comics or anywhere, but I feel like I've seen a lot of people, and in some of the Legends books specifically, assume that Beru was sterile or just couldn't have kids. And that's part of why they took in Luke, was because they couldn't have children of their own, which I think is an interesting aspect to her remaining his aunt, that she's not willing to replace his mother, even though she's never going to have her own children, and Luke is what she has. I mean, same thing for Owen as well, but I like that it adds another layer to her character, I guess, if you want to put it that way. That, like, because by the time she takes in Luke, it's been, like, 5 years since they met Anakin, I think?
No, 3.
3 years.
3.
And she's been with Owen for a while. They were fiancés when she met Anakin, and they're married by the time they take in Luke. But by the time we see them again, they have not had children of their own, which is usually why people assume that they just can't.
Yeah, 3 years is like,
kind of unhinged,
you don't have to
okay.
you don't have to have kids within 3 years. My parents took 3 years to have kids, but like,
true, but
it's
your
not
parents
unreasonable.
Were not settlers in like a frontier where children are your workforce.
That's fair. And also, Klieg appears to be gone by the time Luke shows up.
He has passed away, yeah.
Which would obviously have left them. And I mean, Klieg was disabled, however long he continued to live. So they would have been down a worker. But, to be fair, a baby is not going to be a particularly helpful workforce for several years. And it's going to take up more resources until it becomes helpful as well.
That's true. It's possible that they chose not to have children after they had Luke because they were like, this is a big responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that there is an element of this with both the Larses and the Organas, that they are hiding these children.
Yes.
And so an aspect of keeping them safe could be refusing to have others, just to kind of keep things a little more easily on the down low. Brea, I think, in at least one comic or novel, or a couple of them maybe, has this like condition that keeps her from having kids. She's more explicitly incapable
she
having
has,
her own children.
A heart problem, something with her pulmonary system,
something like that. Yeah.
It's really cool. She has these like little glowing nodes in her chest that like are keeping her alive, basically. They're talked about. It's like they're very organic lights.
Yeah, I think those are legends these days, but it was interesting.
Are they? That's sad. That was a great book.
But there is an implication that she is incapable of having kids because when Bale agrees to take on Leia, or volunteers to take on Leia, he says, "My wife and I have always wanted to adopt a girl." So they are actively looking into adoption already at this point, which kind of implies that they cannot conceive.
And Bale is already older, so is she.
She's actually quite young if you look up the age of that actress, but and Bale, I think, is probably not super old at this point. Bale is maybe in his late 30s. I don't think Jimmy Smits was that old at this point. I don't think Bale is intended to be super old. But anyway, there is an implication that the two of them are incapable of having children. Whether that is on Brea or on Bale is left to your imagination.
In the movies, anyway.
In the films, they don't explain why they are going for adoption. But it means that there is a more of an explicit reason as to why Leia does not have siblings later. But I do think that there might be an element of this that's like, we can't bring more kids into this. We are already choosing to make this a very unsafe situation, and we don't want to make more kids unsafe.
Not to mention, kids are bad at secrets.
You
are risking somebody else who you don't know what they're going to grow up to be.
Yeah.
And you would have to trust them with something at some point. And there is a chance that they might end up betraying their sibling. And, I mean...
unintentionally or not.
Unintentionally or not. Yeah, but it could happen. And that is still a risk that you're bringing into the house when you have this child that you're trying to protect.
Yeah. And I will say that I personally am of the opinion that I think Brea is the real mother of the rebellion way more than Padme. Like, even if you account for those scenes that got cut, like, that group that she and Bale and Mon are creating together does not appear to go on to do shit all. Like, if you actually look at the list of senators who were included in that, Bale and Mon aside, none of them are ever seen again, and they are not included in any of the senators that we later see in the rebellion. So it doesn't actually, one for one go like, this group that was trying to take out Palpatine then goes on to become the rebellion. It's just like Bale and Mon are two people who are now working together who then kind of end up also working together like 20 years down the line. But
I will say that I think that's more because, like, how the story has evolved since then, because I think it is, when it was written, it was intended to be those same senators go on to be the rebellion. But the way the canon currently stands, you are correct that none of them show up for the rebellion later.
None of them show up later. Whereas Brea is, like, helping Bale create this rebellion from day fucking one. And she's raising Leia at the same time. So, like, and obviously Mon is someone who's also often given a Mother of the Rebellion title, which I also think is kind of bullshit. So, like, I think Brea is our real Mother of the Rebellion, personally. And I think that brings us relatively cleanly into Andor, because Andor, I think, is the one place where we were saying Star Wars is predominantly about fathers. I think Andor actually ended up predominantly about mothers, for better and for worse.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, like, there is actually an interesting, especially in season 1, there is this focus on motherhood, way more than there's any kind of focus on fatherhood. I think the theme disappears a little in season 2, but it's definitely solid in season 1.
Which is interesting when you compare it to Rogue One, which, first of all, we have Lyra is named and present before she dies. Very exciting. Thrilling, honestly. And even after she dies, her impact on Jyn is still present, even though she's looking for her father. The movie's all about her and her dad. She's still looking to her mother for guidance all of the time. which I think is very lovely.
Her mom is representative of
Mhm.
faith, I think, and
Yes.
the like hope and faith is coming from the mother, whereas like the father is a little bit more of a practical thing in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the plans.
And even when she's rejecting her father and like saying like I don't know him anymore, or whatever, she's never lost her necklace. She's always holding on to that. And I don't know. I like it's one of the better versions of a fridged wife, honestly, where like the mother is dead, but we still get to know her name. She still has an impact. We know her face. Like and like even though she's dead, she's not gone. And
She also claims Lyra at the end too. Right? When
Mhm.
she's
Yes.
when Krennic is like, "Who are you?" and she's like, "I'm the daughter of Galen and Lyra Urso."
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's using her mother's name, which I really, really, really liked. And I like that they pulled on that thread in Andor, which to continue that thread of motherhood being like so
Yeah.
important.
The other thing that I think Andor did that we have seen less of in some of these other mothers is really complicated moms. Like, these are not like up on a pedestal, beautiful, perfect moms like Shmi or even Padme to some degree, or Brea and Beru, who are like very kind and noble, making all the right selfless choices. Like, these are people making very complicated choices that are impacting their children in some pretty nasty ways.
Like Mon Mothma traffics her fucking kid.
She sells her child in order to
She
save the rebellion.
literally sells her child. Yeah, and granted, that is what her daughter wanted. That does not change the fact that she still trafficked her child.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also don't think that they have, like, from day one, Mon does not have a positive relationship with her daughter.
No.
Her daughter is a bratty teenager and has no interest in what Mom wants to say, which is very interesting because then you have Marva, who, like, Cassian kind of worships a little bit. And, like, I don't think that I think that he has processed some trauma because she is an adoptive mother and, like, did take him from his planet. And so there are, like, seem to be some complicated feelings there, but he doesn't seem to harbor any resentment towards her for that. Like, she is his mom in every sense of the word and impacts his decision making constantly. Like, he's like, oh, I'm on the run for my life, but, like, I'm gonna go grab my mom real fast. And she's like, I'm actually not gonna come with you because I'm a person and I'm not just your mother. Like, I am, but I'm also a mother figure to our specific city, and I need to tell them to fuck the Empire.
Right, she has her own narrative arc.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Unlike many of our mothers, Marva has her own narrative arc. And that's really impressive that they did this, and it kind of pulls into Cassian's, but she gets her own development at the same time as Cassian is. It's really, really impressive writing in season 1.
Honestly, in some ways separate from Cassian. Like, her ending and her final choices don't have a lot to do with Cassian. She's making her choices on behalf of her community and how she can save her community. Separate from Cassian, which
They impact him, but
Yes.
she's not doing it because of him. I mean, she kind of is, but she doesn't know that.
Yeah. I really love that he, like, the Empire is so sure that he's going to come back for her funeral. And he does.
And
but
he does.
He is not attending her funeral because he's got, like, he has to go save Bix. And I love that they were like, Cassian is going to make a choice that Marva would approve of. She doesn't care if he's at the funeral, if he has other things that he needs to get done. And so even if it's like...
He does go out to listen to her, the Wentz.
He does. He doesn't completely ignore that that's happening, but I think that I think that their relationship is at the point where he's like, I know what Marva would want me to do, and we don't see that with Anakin and Shmi.
No. There's none of that self-awareness.
There is not this, like, Cassian's very self-aware, and he's not, like, selfish about that relationship. When Marva says, I'm not coming with you, they have a little bit of a fight, but he does allow her to make that choice.
Yeah, he recognizes that he can't just force her to go with him. I mean, he probably could, but it would not go well.
No, I don't think he could, actually.
I mean, she's frail enough that he could pick her up. Like, she is not all that strong. She's pretty weak, but, like... So he could pick her up and drag her, but she's not going to go quiet.
Yeah, he wouldn't get away with it.
He wouldn't get away with it all that much. I think what's interesting, too, about both Marva and Mon is that, like, they are making bad choices, potentially. You can make arguments that they're making bad choices in taking Cassian and in selling Lita, but they are doing it for these, like, very sympathetic reasons, right? Mon is selling Lita and neglecting Lita because she's involved with the rebellion, and the rebellion is supposed to make a better world for everyone, including Lita. Like, she's doing this for her child, for her family, and she is trying to balance both as best she can. She could just leave. She could have left ages ago and gone to join the rebellion on the ground if she'd wanted to, but she stays because she has a family that she does want to be there for as much as she can, but there's so much she can't tell them. And so it's like, there's a sympathetic reason for why she is making these choices that are hurting her child. Similar with Marva, right? Like, Marva sees a child that she knows is in danger, and she picks him up and walks away with him. And you can question the fact that she just picked up this random child that couldn't even speak to her, couldn't communicate with her, and walked away with him. And we don't even entirely know at this point whether she did save his life or not. We have no idea what happened on that planet.
We never hear about his sister again, that's for sure.
We certainly never hear about his sister again. We know that the Empire bans anyone traveling to it, but we don't really know what happened to it or what would have happened to Cassian if he'd stayed. But all we know is that he does have a life, and Marva did take him, and she did it to save him. But she also separated him from his sister and from all of his other people, the other children that were left. And I just think that it's interesting that, again, this is where the complication comes in, right? Like, these are mothers making the hard choices, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. God, the best scene, I think, of Andor season 2 was that bit where Mon Mothma goes in to talk to Lita, who is like crying on the floor the day before her wedding because her fiance won't hold her hand. And, all she wants is her mom to comfort her, and it's like, she wants her mom so bad, but that's the one time they can connect. Like, the next day when Mon tries to give her an out, Lita hates her for it. It's just like such an interesting, complicated relationship.
Which is also really interesting when Mon talks about her relationship with her own mother.
Yeah.
And how her mother never gave her a choice. And she hated her for it.
But and she got drunk at her wedding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because she knew what she was doing to her. That she didn't want to do it. But she still made her do it. And she's trying to give Lita an out no matter what it'll cost her. And Lita hates her for it. Mm-hmm. And it's such an interesting thing where, like, Lita's a fascinating character, and I think in some ways she wants to blame her mom for everything that goes wrong in her life, and she hates that Mon won't let her do that, because Mon continues to be a very complicated woman who loves her daughter and does give her choices, and Lita hates that. She does not want to be given choices. She wants to be told what to do. She does not want the responsibility. Mm-hmm. This is my personal read, obviously, but I think that's a really fascinating juxtaposition of these two people who love each other very much, but the way that they are in the world, they can never have an open relationship, like an openly honest relationship with each other.
I think I would kill for a post Return of the Jedi, like, Mon and Lita story where, the Empire's gone, Mon had left, came back as the victor, becomes Chancellor of the Republic. What the fuck happens to that relationship when Mon comes back? And Lita at this point is obviously an adult now. It's been many, many years. She could easily have a child at this point. Like, I would die for a well-written version of that story.
Especially when you consider that she's still highly placed in her planet's society. So if she publicly does not have a relationship with her mother, that's going to impact her. Because her mother is now in, big hoo-ha of the government. So she, in some ways, might have to publicly have a relationship with her mother. Which would be
make amends of some kind, yeah.
Yeah, at least publicly. And that would be such an interesting story to tell of, like, oh, we have to be nice to you in public, but, like, I hate you behind the scenes, but, like, I still have to talk to you and interact with you and, like, slowly, whatever. You can do so many things with that.
So interesting.
There's so much meat in there.
So good. The last mother that we have to talk about within canon is possibly
what's not good?
Possibly
it doesn't
our
have
least
any
favorite.
Juicy bits to explore.
The most controversial mother potentially on this list. Mm-hmm. It's Bix Caleen, y'all. We're doing Bix and the baby again.
Why
do you remember that Bix had a baby? It's okay if you forgot.
Talk about being reduced to motherhood.
Bix had she had Andor's baby. First of all, jealous. But second of all, why?
I think that is, like, we've talked about it before. I'll rehash it just real quick. There is no indication that is a life that Bix wants to lead. And then suddenly she's pregnant and she gives up everything to raise this baby. That's it. That's the end of her story.
Yep. She's like gung-ho about the rebellion, and then all of a sudden she's like, no, I gotta go have a kid somewhere else. Other
Yeah.
people have children in the rebellion.
She gets reduced to a symbol, right? Like, he talks about how he didn't want to end the story on an unhappy note, and so he throws in the idyllic, beautiful woman with baby in wheat field image to represent hope. And so it's like, it's not about Bix anymore. It's not about her at all. What she wants, what her story was. It's just about using Bix and motherhood in general as a symbol of something, as opposed to actually doing something interesting with it, which
he
is
could have ended it
intensely
on
disappointing.
What's his name's girlfriend instead? I forget his name. The curly head one who breathes drugs.
Oh, the girlfriend from Gorman?
No. The one from the Wheat Planet.
The other girlfriend.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
the girl
the
that he was
daughter.
into. Oh my god, Minarao is the planet.
I forget her name.
And I can't remember the characters. I know
Mina,
exactly
maybe?
who you're... I don't remember.
She's blonde.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, the idea that, like, maybe they'd had sex before he left the planet, and so she was actually pregnant. The other thing you could do is actually Brasso's girlfriend, which might make more sense. I know she's a little bit older, but I think that might make more sense, actually.
Cute. Especially because Brassos dies. He fucking dies, y'all. That was so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea that, like, Brasso had a kid, right, that he didn't know about. It's the same exact storyline, but, like...
You could still have Bix there. It's just not her kid.
It's not her fucking kid. And so it's just like... And because Brasso seemed a little bit more willing... Like, he seemed a little bit more like a character who wanted that, who wanted to settle and be fatherly and kind of have that. Yeah. It makes more sense to utilize his baby as the, like, symbol of hope kind of thing than
I have a
Cassian's.
pitch. Instead of the fucking wheat field, we zoom in on Bix having taken over the Imperial headquarters on that planet. So you see the wheat fields out the window, and she's in the main office of the building that she's clearly taken over and she's in charge of now. And then Bix's girlfriend comes in holding the baby, being like, oh my god, do you want to hold Brassos Jr.? And that's how we end the movie.
Bix's girlfriend, Brasso's girlfriend.
I was going to say, I think you might have meant Brasso's girlfriend, but now the concept is so much more appealing.
Bix has a girlfand who has a baby.
Bix came
Brasso's
back
girlfriend
and ended up with Brasso's girlfriend.
Yes.
They were like, you know what, we're both sad.
And they hold the baby.
I think we needed to cut back to the planet to show that B the robot is okay, and then we could have
we needed to see that.
I thought that was all it was going to be.
Honestly, I would have been happy. I would have been happy with just BB. Like, I love him.
Also, I think returning Bix to Ferrix actually would have been interesting. Like, I've Lady Night the Brave, if you know about her on YouTube, was very adamant that, like, one of the things that should have happened for Cassian was that he got the funeral stone made for him, and I think it could have been devastating to be like, oh, and B2 Emo is, like, happy on Minarao, maybe you have the baby that is Brasso's baby, and then you bounce one last time to Ferrix, and it's Bix back on Ferrix laying a funeral stone for Cassian. Like, I think that might have actually been
great.
A heavier,
with the city
like, a heavier ending, yes, but
yeah.
With that, though, we are going to let Canon go, and Faye, I'm going to let you take over Legends, because I don't think anyone but you knows anything about this.
Okay, first of all, Mara Jade, my beautiful, my lovely, my gorgeous woman, I love her so much. Why does she die? Because she's a mom. Because that's why she dies. I'm not kidding. She was in Legends for, I think, over 10 years, I think, ish, like real time, 10 years. In the story itself, I think about 15-ish years passes. She has a baby with Luke. They name him Ben. Very cute. No relation to the fuck-ass guy. And then she...
Well...
Yeah.
They'd be cousins.
Well, no. Then, yeah. But, like, not really.
He doesn't exist.
They're named
really.
separately. And then... But his replacement... Sorry, his original, the one he's a copycat of, Jason Solo, who is Leia's son. He goes evil for his reasons. And Mara figures out that he's evil, because nobody knows that he's turned evil. He's, like, disappeared. No one knows. She figures it out, tracks him down, and is like, I'm the only person who can kill you, so I'm going to do that because nobody else can handle this. Kind of thing, like, emotionally. And so they fight. And then he taunts her about her kid, essentially, saying that he's going to kill her kid. And that's what makes her falter. And that's how he beats her. And that's how she dies. Quite literally, she dies because she's a mother. And he uses that against her.
That motherhood is a weakness in this particular narrative in some ways.
That is so upsetting because from what I know about Mara Jade, right? Ready? Very exciting things. She is originally evil. Her whole purpose is to, like, track down and kill Luke. And so the idea that she could settle down with Luke and have a kid is like, oh, things are stable enough that we feel safe to raise a family together.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a huge, like, change in character to be at a point where you can do that and are not, like, constantly trying to do other shit. And then it's like, I'm gonna go do the other shit that I'm good at. Just kidding. I'm dead now. What do you mean?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. And, like, it's like, oh, this is, like, the final thing. Like, there's no coming back from this kind of thing for Jacen Solo. So she's also kind of used for, like, his narrative arc.
Ew.
And, like, everybody else is, like, super upset at her death, obviously. So it's kind of, like, all of that. And then they go on and, like, Jaina ends up killing Jacen. It's a whole thing. But, like, that always makes me so mad that that's her ending. That they decide, oh, she's a mom now. She's had a kid. Her usefulness is done. She can die now. And we'll use
her part
her
in the
motherhood
narrative
to
is
kill
over.
her. Makes me so upset because she's such an important character who has so many things going on. So much of her story is, like, so, like, universal. She has so many friends. Like, I love her so much. And, like, it's terrible. It's a really terrible choice.
She falls right into the same pattern of many of our mothers, though, of, like, you know, Shmi and Padme and even Beru and Brea, where it's like, once the children are done needing a mother in the narrative, once they're done with the mother being there, they get mixed.
What's even worse is they didn't even ask Timothy Zahn, who created her, about her death. He found out when the book came out. Like, they killed a different writer, killed her off in his book, and they didn't even ask him. And he was like,
what?
Fuck y'all, what the hell is wrong with you? Because he loves her. She's, like, one of his favorite characters.
That does make me feel better that her creator did not do that to her.
Yeah. It's true.
I will take solace in that. What are your thoughts on Leia as a mother in Legends?
Leia as a mother in Legends is very interesting. She's a great mother to Jacen. Jacen going evil has more to do with his role as a father and as a older brother than it does anything to do with Leia, really. Leia and Han are really great
Leia's
parents.
a grandma?
Yeah.
I don't think I realized Leia got to grandma status in Legends.
That's why I added Tenel Ka to this list in the main outline, because Tenel Ka is Jacen's girlfriend. She secretly has a kid, and he doesn't find out about it until later. And
that's fun.
Leia and Han do not find out about, her name is Alana Solo. They don't find out about her until after Jacen is dead. And it's a very fascinating, like, complicated thing of things where, like, Jacen is doing what he's doing because he thinks this is the only way to make the galaxy safe for future generations, specifically his daughter. And Leia...
I've heard that before.
But he never, ever, actually... I don't think he ever actually sees his parents because Jaina is the one who kills him. I don't think he ever actually has to face his parents and what he has done to their universe because, like, Leia has a huge role in their government in this world. And, like, she does a pretty good job of, like, splitting with her kids, but, like, this is, like, kind of her government that she's, like, rebuilding. And the fact that he is, like, tearing that shit down is, like, a big factor in that, if that makes sense. So,
yeah.
There's a lot of, like, very complicated themes, like, folded up there, especially because Leia in this one has twins and then one more kid. And she names her last child after her birth father. Which is, you know, people have feelings about that, obviously. But
I have feelings about that.
Yes. But what's interesting to me about that is that she has these twins, and she's not sure she can handle being a mom at all. And then she decides that she can, and she has one more kid, and she loves her little son so much. Like, Anakin is everyone's favorite child. It's super cute. I love him.
Her poor twins.
I know. Well, they love him more too, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. That's like my siblings and my baby brother. He's not my parents' favorite. He's everyone's favorite.
Yes. Anakin is everybody's favorite kid. It's very sweet. And then poor Jaina is like the last surviving kid because Anakin dies young, and then Jacen, you know, she has to kill him. So
unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a little sad. But yeah, that's Mothers and Legends. They have like bad moments and they have good moments. It really depends on what author you're reading.
Which is now also true with Disney canon.
Yeah, tragically.
Yay!
But that leaves us with one last section. And Faye, it's still yours.
It's still mine. Okay, first of all, Jabba has a child, and technically, he's the mother and the father, because it's an asexual reproduction. So he
We
is a
love to see
man.
If you didn't know
So
this
he's the
about the
father.
Hutts, they reproduce asexually, or can at least. I don't know if they always do, but they can. And that appears to be what
Because-
Jabba has done.
And because he identifies as a man, he is the father, but he did create the child.
He
So
did
by
give
some
birth,
definitions,
as far as we can tell.
He is also
Yeah.
the mother, and we do have to honor that about him, is that he does seem to really love his son. It's really important to him. His son. He makes a lot of deals to get his son back. No idea what happens to the son after that. Maybe he ate him, but he does.
No, he
love
lives. Remember, this fucker is in the new Mandalorian and Grogu
Shit,
movie.
that's right. Yeah, he's in the trailer.
Jeremy
so
Allen White is playing Rada Stinky the Hutt in
What?
the fucking Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
I hope we get some lines about how he feels about his mother and father, because I would love to know what their
Mother and
relationship was
father.
like.
Yes, his singular.
We could have gone for parent, but
Is Jabba's son getting kidnapped the plot of the Clone Wars movie?
Yes, it is. That is
It
Okay,
is.
I've seen
correct.
that. Yes.
yes, you
Okay.
definitely have.
It was a
And
beautiful
Thank you.
he's not really ever seen again. Like, I think there might be one or two times where they pop back to Jabba's palace and Rada's like kind of there, but they
Yeah.
don't really do anything with Rada again. So it is wild that is the
That's
character
fun.
they've chosen to bring back in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. And he's supposed to be like buff, like he's like in fighting rings or something.
yeah. Okay.
As a Hutt?
As a Hutt,
That's
yes.
fascinating.
I'm
Okay,
excited to
when
see it.
I watch this movie, that is all I will be looking
That's
at.
kind of all I care about at this point.
Yeah.
Genuinely
That's
I will
though,
just-
keep
yeah.
you guys posted.
Faye,
Yeah,
I think, is
it
going to care a lot about Sigourney Weaver, but we'll see. Anyway, you have a second one on the
Okay.
crack list.
You don't need to call me out like that.
I think we all knew it, but
Yeah, it didn't need to be said.
Our last item is the Acolyte Witches, because we have to recognize that they are lesbian moms who love their kids. They love their girls that they created with dark magic. They're little babies, and they seem like they were good moms, all things considered, aside from the whole, cult thing. They're very supportive.
But only in the sense of you're also in this cult.
Yeah, it was kind of
If
like
you leave the cult, how do they feel about that?
Well,
Are
no,
they
because
supportive of that?
one of them wants to leave to be a Jedi, and she's like, you know what? We have to support her. This is what she wants. And
Okay,
one
I'll
of them
give
is
that
less
to her.
supportive than the other. It is true, but ultimately they are choosing to make her own choices and have her own path. And as far as mothers go in Star Wars, that's we have some representation there. And then they both die tragically and impact their relationship with the Force the rest of their lives, and that's also very on par for Star Wars.
You know what? You got me there. Okay, if you had to get brunch on Mother's Day with one of these mothers,
Rhea.
Shmi.
I should have put money on your answers.
Well, you have to pick one. Who are you picking?
I think Marva.
Ooh, that would be a fun
You know
one.
what? I want to go to karaoke with Marva.
Oh, she'd be so fun.
You know who? So she was originally on this list, and I cut her for time. But I think the one that might be the funnest to go to brunch with would actually be Mala.
Mala. And I definitely know who that is, but for
You
people who
absolutely
don't-
do. She is Chewie's wife.
Mala, my beloved. I'm so sorry. I will rewatch the holiday special.
I was like, Nat's gonna be really upset when she remembers who Mala is.
Yeah, no, you're right. God,
But
she would be
she's the
good
one that
brunch.
we actually see cooking. Do we see any of these
Yeah.
other mothers cooking? Baru maybe. Baru probably knows how to cook. I
We're
would
definitely,
bet,
we see her cook, yeah.
I think we see her cook. I would bet money that Padme can't.
No. Why
She's
would she
never
ever
had the
need to
opportunity.
Shmi can
Yeah.
cook, but Shmi has access to relatively few resources, so I don't know how varied her cooking
Well,
is.
hey, we see her make a very
Yeah.
beautiful meal for everybody, though.
That's
There
true.
was
She
some
makes a
nice
meal for
apples in a
Qui-Gon.
bowl and everything. It looked lovely. Where
So
they got
Shmi could
apples,
cook.
I have no idea.
Rhea, I would also put money on not being able to cook, just given the whole queen
No.
thing.
She cannot cook.
Yeah, it's a
No.
good bet.
But Brea
bet
would take me
Marva.
to the best fucking restaurant.
Yes.
No, I take it back. I don't think Marva can cook. I think her husband could cook.
Ooh, yeah, Clem. Fun does seem like the
Yeah.
one
I
who
think
probably
Marva
coached
has
between the two of them.
Freezer. I think she had
Cassian
freezer
had to
meals.
pick that up after he died.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he would have been poisoned.
I think Bix
Okay.
can cook, but only like hard-boiled eggs.
I think Bix can make a good, like, quick. I think Bix can meal prep. I don't think she can
Yes.
cook.
Mhm.
Okay, if you had to bake a pie with one of these moms.
Baru, because she had the nicest
Yeah.
kitchen.
That's a fun way to pick one. I'll go Leia just to be weird about it. I think Leia would be very interesting to have to make a pie
I think
with.
Leia would be fun.
I think I would
I
just
think-
get kicked out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
I am so happy to be a sous chef for Leia. I would be
Oh, that's
delighted
true.
to be Leia's
I'll
sous
chop
chef.
for her.
I don't
You're
need to
right.
be in charge. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Would you guys like a goat fact?
Always.
Yes,
What do you
please.
think about this one today? Okay. A female goat is called a doe or a nanny. A male goat is a buck or a billy or a wether if he's castrated. A young male goat that's not sexually mature is a buckling. The young female goat that's not sexually mature is a doeling. A yearling is goat between 1 and 2. A baby goat less than 1 year old is a kid, and giving birth is called a kidding.
It's called
Did
a
you
kidding.
know?
A kidding.
Did you know that slang for child is the word kid?
Did
Who
you know?
could you have picked that up
Did you
from?
know that some people might use the word for baby goat to mean child?
It's thieves' slang that you might pick up in the streets.
It's
Yeah.
poor people slang. You've never heard it
If you
before.
happen to know Briar Moss, you might pick that up.
For those of you Tamara Pierce fans, that was for you.
And finally, a group of goats is called a tribe or a trip.
I like
I
Trip.
like tribe.
Trip is cute. They're both cute.
We went
Interesting.
opposite directions there.
Yeah. I think a trip of goats is cute. A tribe of goats like makes too much sense. I want it to be weird. This is
A tribe
for
of
trip
goats
and
feels
there's a kidding
ominous.
today.
And that feels on par for goats.
That's
a
for
little
sure.
bit.
Good point. I think it should be a trip if there's kids included and a tribe if there's not.
Ooh, love.
I'd like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did
Got
it.
it. I'm proud of
You're
it.
welcome, people who study goats, goatologists. Our intro and outro music is Mos Eisley Cantina by Speedkicks. Angela and I edit, our artwork is by me, and Sugar is our writer and researcher. You can find us on Instagram and Tumblr at Unleash the Goats. Thanks for listening.